It is 6:30 PM and we will begin this council meeting for Tuesday, November the 12th. Please rise. You got to turn on your mic and put it down. Please be seated. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda, and the motion comes forward from Councillor Gorell and seconded by Councillor Kelman that the agenda be adopted as circulated. Is everybody good with the agenda this evening? Okay, call a question. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Next item is declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Does anybody have an interest to declare? I see no hands up. Number 5 on the agenda is in camera, and we do not have an in camera or reporting out from in camera. So we'll move forward to number 7, consent agenda, the adoption and receipt of minutes. And the motion comes forward from Councillor Gorell, seconded by Councillor Kelman, that the October 15th, 2024 council meeting minutes and November 4th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting minutes be adopted as circulated, and that the August 22nd and 2024 municipal heritage committee meeting minutes and the September 24th, 2024 committee of adjustment meeting minutes be received and filed. Any errors or omissions in any of the meeting minutes or comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next item. Sorry, go ahead, Deputy Mayor. Oh, sorry. Thank you. I had mentioned at the planning meeting earlier that unfortunately Councillor Jameson is unable to join us and sends his regrets for this evening's meeting. Thank you for the reminder, Deputy Mayor. We'll move forward with number 9, staff reports. 9.1, update the Emergency Management Program Committee. And the motion comes forward from Councillor Kelman, seconded by Councillor Gorell, that the council approve the staff report as recommended at the November 4th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? All that and opposed, and it's carried. Thank you. So under information items, there are 2 items, provincial planning statement for 2024 and the operating capital status as at September 30th, 2024. Motion comes forward from Councillor Maybe and seconded by Deputy Mayor Fody that the information items be received and filed. So the motion's on the floor. Any questions in regards to the PPS or the operating and capital status? Go ahead, Councillor Garrell.
Yes, and through you, Your Worship, just a few notes concerning the provincial policy, planning statement 2024, if I may. And I guess it'd be directed to planning and their general comments. First of all, as I read it, and I think I'd like to thank the planning department for putting together a very nice report. I've been following the planning statement from the province for months. As I read it, though, it brings a lot of contradictions in my mind regarding our township and what the province is saying. Areas such as the population growth coming from the upper tier, I have never seen in 7 years sitting in this seat a population estimate that was over 10,000 people. And that's, we're already at 9,000 some. So in terms of housing, it doesn't seem a big stretch for our township. They use the term non-market-based establishment. The planning department will establish and implement minimum targets to provide affordable and low-cost and moderate income housing. Question: what are the tools that a township and a planning department has to make that happen? I know we've thrown out the idea of development charges. That's a provincial issue. I don't know how in Lord's name, and I apologize for editorializing, this just drives me crazy. Next, settlement areas. They say the development will be in the settlement areas. We have 5. The only settlement area that is capable of real development is right here in Lansdowne, which brings me back to the next, pardon me, let me say, I'll bet you 99% of the development housing, residential, that has gone on in this township has been outside of any settlement area. It's been on the lakes, it's been on Highway 32, it's been along where I live on the Parkway. I don't see that there have been low-cost, moderate-income homes built in this township. And I don't understand how the province can possibly expect us to be forcing that. The settlement areas, I am happy to see that they are going to allow communal sewage systems, Nuterra and other developments. That's a good thing for us. The upper tier responsibility in 6.2.4, it says that we're to take direction from the upper tier regarding our population, our housing and employment projections, and they're going to tell us where they identify growth and development. That's kind of turning the triangle upside down there a little bit, folks. It's the province, once again, telling us things that are somewhat irrelevant to us. I've been sitting here for 7 years and I have yet to see where this actually works. And it puts pressure on a planning department to try and comply. So I know it states in here that we have to upgrade our OP and so on. Can we not write a letter to the province and say, hello, folks, you are not dealing with this township appropriately? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. The challenge with the PPS is that it's not a one-size-fits-all document. So there's multiple different configuration sizes, iterations of municipalities across Ontario. We're a 2-tier system here. So in terms of the population growth and housing projections and that type of thing, that is work that the counties does do. Now, they haven't done it for some time. And I will say that the United Counties did just issue an RFP within the last month for the population projections for a broader horizon, because the counties wants to do a development charges study, and this information is necessary for doing that. The Municipal Act does establish that in a 2-tier system, it's the responsibility of the upper tier to do the population growth and housing for the lower tiers. So while you haven't seen much happen on that front in your time on council, that is happening and it is at their level. The United Counties OP does include policies that speak to their role in doing that, and also speaks to the targets for affordable housing, and includes policies around directing growth to settlement areas. When you look at our official plan, which is required to be consistent with the United Counties official plan and implement it, our official plan does direct growth to the settlement areas of Rockport, Ivy Lee, Sealy's Bay, Lansdowne, and Lyndhurst. But our official plan also recognizes that Lansdowne is our only serviced settlement area. When you look at the settlement area boundaries in our official plan, the settlement areas are actually much larger than what you would think when you look at Lyndhurst. There's more land to it. When you look at Rockport particularly, there's significantly more land than what you would actually think the settlement area is. That being said, you're absolutely correct that the majority of growth that we're seeing is probably outside of our settlement areas. But the PPS doesn't shut down that growth that we're seeing occurring. It's just if we were looking at something more intense, like the development that was approved for Huck's Marina, that is more intense development to be located in a settlement area. It's being located on what would be a communal servicing area, depending on the nature of the ownership of the structures. So the 2024 PPS does enable more consideration of those communal services, of single services. So there are some more permissions in some areas where it is more permissive. So it's all in how it's applied. With that being said, we are going to have to do some amendments to our official plan to bring it up to date. For some things that are as simple as our official plan references the PPS 2014, because that was the PPS that was in effect at the time that it's approved. We've been through 2 since then. So those references will need to be updated. There's some other things that will need to be updated when you look at cultural heritage policies. But the PPS does include an implementation guideline that says that notwithstanding policies in the OP that don't comply, the PPS policies take precedence over our OP policies. So even though we may not have our OP updated today and the PPS is in effect, every application we review, we're reviewing the PPS policies. And so we'll be taking that approach going forward. When it comes to looking at the budget, we have our budget meeting in December. One of the things that I had included in my budget for last year was an update to our zoning bylaw. We didn't get to that this year. But I'm bringing that forward again, which will also include updates to the official plan. It's natural that there would be updates to our official plan going through a full zoning bylaw update, but we'll roll in additional updates that would be required to the official plan into that process, because I don't want to open the official plan up multiple times for small amendments. So I would rather have somebody take a comprehensive overview of everything. It doesn't mean there aren't smaller amendments that we could do, but every time we open up an official plan, it's subject to a full public meeting, full notification. And so I would rather do a comprehensive approach and bring forward a comprehensive set of amendments to council. So that is something that you will see coming forward in my budget this year. I'm just looking at the summary that I have here. In terms of the servicing, we are actually ahead of the game. We had already brought forward a report with respect to
You're in
servicing
Lansdowne.
policies for Lansdowne. So we have that servicing allocation policy already in effect that the province has brought forward in the 2024 PPS. So overall, I think we're in good shape as it relates to it. I don't think there's anything that's really pressing that's like, oh my gosh, we need to get on this right away. I think we're in good shape as it relates to it, and we'll just manage it as it comes.
Just, and a final follow-up, if I may. It mentions non-market-based, establish and implement minimum targets, provide affordable and low and moderate income housing. I don't think the province has done a good job on that. What kind of pressure does that put, and what are the tools in a municipality of our size, a lower tier municipality? What tools do we have that can possibly deal with that? I understand development charges. That seems to be a fraction of what would be required here. It's just words on a page here.
Development charges actually don't even help with that, because development charges are to fund growth. Doing that is really a difficult task. It's like trying to pin Jello to a wall. in my past dealings with larger subdivisions, the developers have said, well, my affordable housing is the townhouses. Well, we all know that there can be a huge range in price of a townhouse depending on the finishes and how it's built and the construction standards. So it's very, very difficult, especially when you're looking at development at the scale that we're looking at it, where a lot of it is through consent or it's one home at a time. So to try to put affordability targets in place when you're looking at small scale development is extremely difficult. Through a subdivision, it's a little bit easier, but it's still quite a challenge because most times it's the market that's driving what the developer is building. You will hear the argument that we're building new housing and what it's going to do is free up existing housing stock that will be at a lower price point. But again, how do you police that? How do you enforce that? Unless you have somebody applying for affordable housing funding through the United Counties, where they're getting, say, a funding per unit, and they're entering into an agreement to say that I'm going to keep this unit at an affordable housing level for 30 years through a funding mechanism through the counties, very difficult for us as a lower tier to implement and police that.
So I might add to those questions. So in regards to the county and how that is being explained, handled, there's a few other things I'd like to add to that. So the county OP 10-year review is happening next year or another year. Anyways, there's two other current processes underway. One is the LEAR, which is the addition of agricultural lands to the existing prime ag land inventory, as well as an aggregate land base. We've been struggling with that at the county mainly because some of the formula that they've used to try to come up with adding more ag land to the prime ag designation has been a very wide paintbrush and not necessarily granular in that. Welcome to Eastern Ontario, we're covered in rocks and trees. So using the 100-acre swaths, we have lots of prime at what farmers would consider prime ag land, but they're not necessarily in just 100 or bigger acre swaths. So anyways, there's some negotiation happening at the county level because that has to be done in order for us to complete our OP review. But in regards to the targets for affordable housing, the county has tried to put policies in place and incentivization to both current homeowners and landlords, both. There's a program that's adding secondary units to either rental properties or owner occupied properties. And that's by way of gifting. Well, it's not gifting, it's a grant. It's considered a forgivable loan. So you don't make payments on it. And I think it's actually only 20 years. I'd have to go back and look. But the amount of uptake on that program is abysmal. I think they've had one application across all of the United Counties. So there's a few things at play. One, things are expensive to get a $50,000 grant or forgivable loan to put in a in-law suite or an addition. Let's be honest, 50,000 doesn't come close to what you would usually need by the time you get your engineering and all that other stuff and fire separation and whatever, depending on where the unit is and if you have the space. Or people just don't know about it. And they have tried desperately to get things out through social media and what have you. So anyways, the affordable piece comes really from the counties, not from us at the lower tier. We have affordable units. We have to have so many within the counties. The province tells us we have to have a minimum, and we currently exceed what our minimum is. And I don't have those numbers in front of me currently, which is not to say that we aren't desperately in need of more affordable housing. But the challenge is these builders, even if the subdivision south of the tracks was to go forward. So there was talk about affordable parts of that subdivision, but what we need are rentals being built, purpose rentals, and nobody's building them because the cost associated with them and the return on investment is difficult because with affordable housing, you can only charge so much per unit. And when the costs are here and your rent is only here, who's making up the shortfall? So the general public, the economic benefit is not there to build them. So to your point, there needs to be more thought put into how we incentivize that. Whether it be at the county level, the provincial level, but certainly not at the lower tier level. So just a little bookend to that. So go ahead, Deputy Mayor Foote.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship, through you. To follow through on Councillor Grell's comments to Director of Planning, on our population, is it census only to use as a benchmark for what our current population is township, or when the planning process is complete and somebody is granted living in a new dwelling, is there guesstimated numbers or is there any accreditation for that to the population?
Through you, no, we don't guess what our population is. So at this point, we're working with the most recent census numbers. There was a proposed update probably 2 years ago to the United Counties official plan, but it wasn't approved by council. And so, as I said, the counties is going out. They are going to award an RFP to do population projections going forward. So hopefully, it's November now. I'm assuming that it'll be awarded within the next month or two. I'm hoping that by the end of next year, we have updated population numbers, but I don't know what the process and work plan is for that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And on another note with the same vein, I find it shallow that the province would ask all municipalities, including small ones like ourselves, to try and accomplish any goals, whether we do it through lower or upper tier, and then stifle impact reassessment. That is my number one beef with the provincial government. Since 2016, we've sat here, inflation is running up through COVID, and here we are, 8 years later, and the province smiles away and they're going to send us all a check for $200. Well, that's just wonderful. Maybe reassessment would be a much wiser way to go. I'll leave it at that.
So the population numbers, they do use the census. I did see that document come through at one point. But there's a lot of other factors they use to project our population. And typically Eastern Ontario historically grows at a much slower pace than many other areas. However, since COVID, that has changed significantly. So it'll be interesting to see the new numbers come through. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just as an aside, we talk about protecting agricultural land. This past Saturday, I went with some colleagues for a meeting in 2 different locations. We took a shortcut up through Erin, Ontario. Farmers that I knew, dairy farmers that I knew, those farms on the same road are vacant. And these are tracts of hundreds of acres of land. You see the odd survey stake here and there. You know what's happening. And you look all around you, there isn't a housing within range of them, but it's coming and they know it. And yet the provincial government will direct us to protect agriculture. Hello, maybe you should go to where the housing is really growing and see what's happening there.
Well, it's a pretty frustrating process. I know that there are a number of members of county council that are concerned about their settlement areas and actually being limited to not being able to grow. Merrickville Wolford, specifically Edwardsburg Cardinal, because the new proposed changes to the LEAR essentially deem land that is not productive currently and hasn't been productive for years as agricultural land. So there's some talk about some horse trading, if you will, for actual productive land. And after having a lengthy conversation with our planner, they're only using a lens, the consultants that they've had, based on just ground quality, so different types of soils. And anybody here who's farmed knows that we can almost grow crops out of rocks here. So, and we do in certain places. Certainly there's some that are better than others. And even though they don't meet the class A, class D, class, whatever class, we're still able to make a living and do well here in Eastern Ontario. But it has been said at county council, it's awful rich that we need to make up here in Eastern Ontario, make up the protection for the agricultural lands when they were about to decimate a green belt. So anyways, I did not say that, but that was said. So go ahead.
If I may, one more. Thank you, Your Worship, through you. we don't have to go 20 minutes in any of the three directions, east, west, or north from right here. And I can show you forested land that'll be growing a crop next year. Trees are being cut and cleared and logged out. Roots are being removed by massive equipment that's capable of doing it. And it'll be cropped by next year. And, so it's a little confusing for anyone to look at any land numbers, whether it's this much rural land and this much forested land and this much wetland. The wetland may not change, although some may be, but, if there's tributaries upstream that are being circumvented because of whatever, fed by a forested area that's now going to be obsolete and systematically tiled, it's an ever-changing landscape. And couldn't help but think the last 6 months, I suppose, that we've got a whole new era of settlers, if you will. Our settlers used to cut trees by hand, axe, cross saws, chop away and pull roots out with teams of horses. And now we can do all that work in a matter of hours. So I don't know, there's a lot of room for conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other comments about the PPS? Go ahead. No, okay. No more comments about the PPS? Okay, we'll go on to operating capital. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. I just had not really a question because I think I know, but I noted the cost of the portable radios. And I know that it says $217,000 for portable radios. And I know at Charleston Lake Provincial Park, they just replaced their radios and they were like $9,000 to $12,000 each for each handheld. So I know they're very expensive, but I just wondered if the director of operations could clarify like how many that would have got, or this is
It's actually the fire chief.
Sorry.
It's the fire
Oh,
chief.
it's for the fire. Okay.
Yeah,
Fire chief.
through you, Mayor. I'll speak first before, and then I'll kick it to the fire chief. He can talk about the radios. So that project, it's not actually 217,000. It's 108,000 was spent on these radios. It was actually a 2022 project that was funded through modernization. So they were acquired in 2022 and capitalized and set up as a accrued liability. We didn't actually get the bill till 2024. So the cash going out actually went out in June or July. However, when the accounting entry was done to reverse the accrual, they flipped the accounts. So it doubled the expense and doubled the accrual. It's an accounting error. It'll net to zero for 2024, but it was a 2022 expense paid through modernization. It's 108,000 was spent and change. I don't know how many radios.
But
that
we had
actually
budgeted
was.
for it in 2022.
2022, yeah, and it was funded through modernization, but we didn't get the bill till this year.
Mr. Chief, are they
Through-
working?
Through your worship, yes, the radios that we used, that we bought, the original one was through the county. And when they were first purchased, they were $5,500. The new ones have now gone to almost $9,000. We've tried cheaper radios. They don't work in our municipality with all the lovely rock and areas that we have. So we right now have to stick with those type. There are some changes coming to the services with the NG 911 and with all the changes, because the county is getting near the end of that service life on those radios. So what we've tried to do is set that up so that when they make those changes to the new radios, ours are still compliant. So but yes, they are running around $9,000 a piece.
Yeesh. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, are all our firefighters equipped with these radios now?
Through your worship, no. All of our officers and chief officers all carry radios, plus we have extras on the trucks. But we've got 91 firefighters, so we don't have one for each one.
So follow if I may. So the intent is someday to have all the firefighters with the same radio. Was
In a perfect world, yes. But what we like to do is all of our officers have them. So if an officer's in, plus the extras on the trucks, the crews will carry them so that they at least have 2 radios at all times inside.
And one more follow if I may. Thank you, Your Worship, through you to our fire chief. I heard, I was partaking in a conversation just yesterday, I believe, or the day before. And the gentleman made a comment that dispatching no longer takes place in Brockville. Is that so? Did they move our dispatching?
not as my last phone call to Brockville was yesterday. No, 911 goes to a central area, which then bumps out to the different PSAPs in the area. So when there's a fire call in Leeds, Thousand Islands, all fire calls, or Leeds and Grenville, all fire calls go to Brockville Dispatch, with the exception of Gananoque.
Right. And rather than get in a dispute with something he may have known that I didn't, which is quite possible, all 911 calls here go to North Bay, right?
Yeah.
And
To
then
the-
bounce back
to
to,
Aurelia and North
Really?
Bay.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about the operating capital status? Go ahead, Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to you. I have a bunch, just for clarification, they're all kind of grouped together. 2004 Top Kick, 2011 Half Ton, 2015. We have Marine 3. Can I just get a clarification? Are these all replacements that we're replacing all of these and haven't taken place yet?
Mr. Treasurer? He's just looking at his spreadsheet here.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, those are replacements. Not the fire boat was ordered. I don't know where the delivery. We're
Through
expecting
your
delivery
worship,
on that.
we're still waiting for the boat. The boat will be here hopefully within the end of this month to the first of next month.
And this is replacing
That's-
Marine 1.
That'll
or
be
something.
going to Station 3, which will sit in the water in Gananoque. We've kept, in the budgetary, I asked to keep the old Marine 3, which will move to Station 2, just so we have a little bit of coverage in the lake area up there.
So I'm confused because we have Marine 3 as 150,000. So I'm assuming 150,000 is replacing Marine.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, correct.
And that's same with all the other,
We're not adding to
hence
the
it doesn't
fleet.
say, it just says these
Okay.
have values attached to them.
Any other specifics there, Mr. Lackey?
Viewing platform.
The viewing platform? And we also, with the viewing platform, received, what was it, 17?
Yeah. This is a two-prong attack again. I'll kick it over to Mr. Holiday after. So in terms of the budget in 2024, this was originally a 2023 project. And it was originally budgeted in 23 at 25,000. There was an error at the time in the budget in that it was budgeted net of donations and a grant, whereas it should have been budgeted as a gross. So that 9,500 is the carry forward. There was about 15,000 and change spent in 2023. So that's the carry forward of the original 25,000. But in addition to that, there was about 22,000 in donations, and then there's a grant of about 35,000 as well. On top of that, so overall, that would bring it to around 65,000. Now, we're clearly over that total amount, and this is where I'll kick it to Mr. Holiday, and he can speak specifically to that project.
Mr. Holiday.
Thank you, through your worship. So when we closed the tender for this project, we were within budget. When we got out to site and we were driving piles down into the ground, we hit a bit of a snag where for some reason we were in between seams of the rocks and ended up having to drive the piles, which we thought were going to be 1.2 to 3 meters, 10 meters plus. And we had a unit rate for that. So the additional cost for those piles ended up being 30,000 above the tendered amount. We proceeded with the project, got the piles in, and everything else went as we had expected, but there was definitely an overage as a result of the piles going down into the ground.
There was also an incident that added cost to that whole thing as well when we were digging.
Correct. We did encounter a
Water.
call that a shore water service that that serves a property on the opposite side of the park. So a water service that runs through the park to two homes that what I'm told historically was actually installed by the municipality for those homes. So we were unaware of those. We had done our locates and nothing actually showed on the locates. Nobody was aware. There's no tracer wire or anything like that. So that was all rectified and put back in working order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fode.
It bodes, thank you, Your Worship, through you, it bodes the obvious question. What was the total cost of the viewing platform?
It's in that report, I think.
In the report, there was just over 110,000 spent with the 15,000 last year as well. just carry forward. So approximately about 125,000.
Thank you.
And we received 35,000 in a grant as well as 22,000 in donations to do that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Graff.
Thank you, and through you, your worship. Under water and wastewater capital, the water storage and distribution system is showing 2.75 million. Is that the municipality's portion? I think that was that had a division in it. We got some grant money from Husef or something.
Go ahead.
So is that 2.75 million?
So the
Our
original
portion or the total?
that was the total in the 2024 approved budget. Of that, I believe about 800,000 was to be funded through CCBF or federal gas tax money that we've accrued to date. The remainder would be funded through debt unless a grant was found, which is where the
Yusuf.
Husef
Husef.
grant applications are coming in. Yeah, so about 800,000 of that was fed gas, and the remainder would be debt or hopefully a grant.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say maybe Director Holiday can speak to the Husef application. The second iteration has just recently gone in.
That is correct. Within the last 2 weeks, we have submitted for round 2 of Husef. And we are looking at the Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund as well too. So that will be coming through council for a resolution. It's a federal grant that we can apply for as well.
Okay, did you have a follow-up?
I know this will come up or assume this will come up during our budget deliberations, but when I'm looking at the numbers here on the capital status, and I do appreciate that there's still stuff coming in the last quarter, but there's a big disparity, obviously, between budget totals of 13+ million, or if you want to go to the top end, 16.5 million, and the what has been spent. So my question is simply, when we're looking at numbers like this, most of this gets carried forward. I'm assuming in our upcoming budget, those numbers that get carried forward, they get divvied up into, we can take some out of reserves, we can put some to debt. Is that correct? Am I correct in my thinking there? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, it depends on the individual project, but when we sit down and come up with a funding plan for the budget, we kind of allocate at that time whether it's coming out of reserve funds or we would identify a project as a potentially debt funded project if no alternative was found, and that would be identified, like the current fire hall that's under construction was identified as that. And the only thing I would say to that is just like about the 10.2 million that's currently unspent, I would just caution that about 7 million of that is that water distribution and the current fire hall that's being constructed. 7 of that 10 million is unspent between those 2 specific projects. So there's a couple of very large unspent, but that fire hall is getting spent quickly. So it'll
Just
be,
haven't got the final bill yet.
it'll be much less a year end for the fire hall for sure.
Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, as far as when we get these updates, I know that in our procedures, we have, up to 50,000 is the discretion of staff. But when we get these, can we take any anomalies and have them highlighted with an explanation when we get them?
Like put a yellow highlight on the
If there's
line
some
and then a
anomaly,
footnote?
too high, too low, like some sort of threshold, we get it highlighted and we get an explanation as to why.
Well, if there's
Right.
anything over that spending limit, it always comes back to council, correct? So I just can't remember the specifics of the spending limits. Is it 50,000?
On a capital, I think.
Okay.
But anyway, just in the line items as far as, we get those highlighted, so we don't have to sit there and pick through them. They know better than we do.
Fair. Okay. Good feedback. Any other comments or questions about operating capital status? Okay, I'm going to call the question on the motion. There is a motion on floor that information items be received and filed. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next item is action required items, request for extension of draft plan subdivision approval Valley Estates, and the motion comes forward from Deputy Mayor Fode, seconded by Councillor Maybe, that council supports a request for an extension of the draft plan of subdivision approval submitted by Forefront Engineering, Inc. on behalf of River Street Development Corporation, United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, file number 08-T-09001. Discussion on the motion. Okay, fairly straightforward. Or Councillor, maybe go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I actually drove up there over the weekend and seen the progress that's already happening there. And as there's 10 houses that are up there already, all magnificent homes, and it's looking very good. And it's added quite a bit to our township in its grandeur. Well, I think I counted 4 lots available. So with that rate, they do need to expand and it'll look even better. The only question I did have about that expansion was that there is only one way in and out of the whole thing. And I don't think there's actually any room on the plan to ensure a second egress in the event of an emergency within the first little short bit of the entry road. And I don't know whether that's a concern or not. Maybe the fire chief has maybe other thoughts, or
The
Director of
planner can
Planning.
answer
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you through you. This draft plan of subdivision was approved some time ago. In terms of the interior layout, it was acceptable at the time that it was approved. You're absolutely right that typically we look for at least a secondary entrance. There are other options we can look at when we go through final approval for subsequent phases in terms of potential road widenings or slip lanes in certain areas, should there be a blockage in the road to allow for a fire truck to get through. So that's something that we can look at in subsequent phases as they come through. But it is a little constrained in terms of there really is nowhere else to look at a secondary access point when you look at the topography, the natural features that are constraints on the property in terms of where the road can go. So there's some limitations with what we can do.
Any other comments in regards to the motion that's on the floor? I have no hands up, so I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And it is carried. Next item on the agenda is 11.2, Township Participation in Lou Jeffries Arena. The motion comes forward from Councillor Maybe, seconded by Deputy Mayor Fode, that the council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign an annual financial contribution agreement with the town of Gananoque regarding the Lou Jeffries Arena for a 4-year period in the amount of $161,500 for 2025, with an annual adjustment for inflation for the following 3 years. So there was the motion, the information came forward at committee of the whole. There was additional information requested. So I'll ask those councillors that asked for that additional information. Is everybody content, or is there further information that's required? Okay, does anybody want to make a comment or question? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Again, as we've gone down this road many times and know that, it is a substantial amount, but we still know that our climatic condition doesn't allow us to have outdoor rinks, or at least very long. And that a lot of our residents are being, or can participate in the building. We still have all the hockey, and figure skating, all the other things. But the rink is just more than an ice pad. It does have the upstairs as a hall, that which we actually had a meeting in for our doctors. And most recently, the town of Gananoque, we had one also. There's youth dances going on up there right now, which is a great incentive to get the kids back out into that. I know many of us around the table may remember the canoe club. So it is a need. It does serve a purpose. The building itself, there's been a lot of questions about the condition, but being somebody who looks after some very ancient buildings, anything that can be maintained if you spend the money on it. And I don't think the building is in that bad a condition. I've watched it over the years, as I've said at many other meetings. the improvements that they have made and the repairs that have been done. And as they keep maintaining it, it will sustain the community for a long time until there's a need for something bigger, better, newer, brighter. But post-COVID, it's got a positive swing and increase the population. The more people are coming back to it and using it. And as we all have said many times before, with the industries that were in our area have moved away, some of the people who use it on a regular basis have also moved away. But changing around, there's more housing in the area. We just had an information item about trying to increase our population. So you must have the facilities to have people use them to keep them in the area. So I think this is a very positive move for us to continue supporting this. And then as the reference is 4 years, so we can then decide on how we move forward after the 4 years and into the new council. So I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Councillor Kelman, you had your hand up, I think. Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. To speak on behalf of my colleague, Councillor Jameson, who's unable to be with us here tonight. He had stated in the last meeting last week that he would like to see, and he'd mentioned it before, as did Councillor Kelman, he'd like to see a township recreation plan. I think we all would, you know, and then we can really decipher and maybe we can do one of those monkey surveys as to what everybody is looking for and maybe break it out into areas so we know what each area is looking for. But in the meantime, I like Councillor Maybe. I have supported, I will continue to support, and I'll support the excuse me, the Gananoque Arena here tonight. I think it's going to take us 3 or 4 years to get an actual recreation plan for the township. It's not something that's going to happen in a few weeks or a few months, and I don't believe it's going to happen in 2 years. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of investigation by our various departments, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I will support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Kelman, go ahead, and then Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I appreciate the additional information provided by staff. I'm sure they're sick of dealing with this. I'm sure they are. For me, I remain strong. I still feel that almost half of our recreation budget being spent on one facility for a use of 1/20th maybe of our population is not equitable for the people across the township. And I just can't wrap my head around that. And we do need a recreation plan. I would like to have seen more input on that before we agree to something that's going to carry us forward for 4 years and we're locked into that. I don't know where hockey is going. I've read some interesting reports about enrollment numbers and that kind of thing and the condition of the rink as well. So for me, I just don't think it's an equitable way of spending our recreation dollars for the entire township.
Councillor Lackey.
Thank you, Worship, and through to you. I appreciate all the discussion. I think it's time we put this to bed. I just wanted to make a note that just prior to walking through the doors tonight, I spoke to the CAO of Perth. And they are actually in the exact same place we are right now. They have 2 municipalities that are bunking in on their arena. Well, it's not an arena, it's a bit of a complex, much nicer than Gananoque. They have a pool, they have community sharing, and they're currently at, I believe, 220,000 from residents outside of Perth who use that facility. The way it's set up, and I don't have the details in front of me. Like I said, it was 10 minutes before I walked through the door, but those neighboring municipalities have the use of all recreation facilities in Perth. So I don't think we're far off. I think we're high on this, but it'll be the will of council, and whatever the will of council is, I support. I'm just glad that much more information is available now to people. They can make their own. I'm here to represent all taxpayers in the township, and many of them are on fixed incomes. So you can understand why they don't want to throw $627 per user into an arena when they can barely afford their rent. So you can see kind of where everyone's coming from. So moving forward, I think we should keep that in mind. I will vote in favor while holding my nose. Thank you.
Any other comments in regards to the motion on the floor? I have no other hands up, so I will call the sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, Your Worship,
Give-
and through you,
Bird.
not so much the last word. We're in a potential here for a tie vote tonight, given our numbers. Councillor James is not present.
Well, I'll deal with that as the chair if it comes.
Okay, fair enough.
So I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion at hand? And all those opposed? Everyone opposed, the motion is carried. To the point that Councillor Lackey and Kelman have made, you know, it really comes down to the fact that recreation has been a bit of a elusive thing. But as I was telling Councillor Kelman at another event, we actually had a group come forward to an indoor soccer league that's been organized, and to the point about having the rec coordinator do something more comprehensive that addresses all the needs, hopefully, or as many needs as possible. That we can be more targeted in what we can do. And what I want the community to understand is that recreation happens because of volunteers and only because of volunteers. The recreation coordinator that we have funded here in the municipality is just the quarterback. The rest of the team is reliant on those individuals who choose to step up and support, whether it be seniors, children, whatever. It really is all organized through volunteers, and we're very appreciative of those individuals, whether it be the soccer league or whether it be fencing, badminton, all the things that happen. It doesn't happen without our members of the community who work so hard. And also the individuals that are in Gananoque that welcome our township children and seniors, what have you. Just think of the canoe club in Gananoque, which is a desperately needed thing in the summer. And it is solely funded on parents paying, as well as grants and other opportunities, and the good nature of the town of Gananoque as well. So just a big heartfelt thanks. I know this has been a long discussion and a hard one, but I just want to underscore that the only reason that recreation happens is because of volunteers. So thank you. Next is on the agenda is the mayor's update. So thank you to each and every one of you who took the time to represent the township at a local Remembrance Day service. I was in Lyndhurst along with Councillor Kelman, Councillor Lackey, Councillor Gorell, myself, and Deputy Mayor Fody were also in Rockport. Councillor Maybe was in Gananoque. So, and Deputy Mayor Fody was in Lansdowne. So we kind of touched everywhere. I'm not sure if Mark was supposed to be in Sealy's Bay. I'm not sure if he was able to go. But nonetheless, we're, for a rural municipality, we have lots of individual ceremonies. But I must say the one in Rockport is always very touching. They go out of their way to read stories about those fallen who did not make it back. And often it's their letters from home or anecdotes of the individuals and what they did in the community before they left, and usually communication back and forth to the family. So it's, you know, it's World War I, well over 100 years ago. Like we're losing those individuals who have connections to World War I and World War II. And it's really important that we always make an effort to remember those who served and continue to serve. And just an additional footnote, we do miss you, Gord, and all that you did for us here and for our country. And if you have a moment, there is a new painting that has gone up here in the village of Lansdowne on Cliff Street. Somebody did it over the weekend. And it's absolutely beautiful, and it's in remembrance of soldiers, both currently serving and those who have served that made the ultimate sacrifice. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Fody.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just to add, I watched a documentary before I left the house yesterday morning to attend the service in Lansdowne. And there was a number there that jumped out when they were speaking. The average age of World War II veterans, those are still alive, is 96.
So they are few and far between now. And other items, I just wanted to let everybody know that County Road 13 is almost entirely finished. There are some things they're gonna have to wait till the spring to come back and do, but I got a message from the contractor saying that they worked very hard to try to make sure that that was done prior to the winter. So thank you very much, Tackleberry Construction. And now I would like to speak to hear from our fire chief, because if you haven't heard sirens this week, then you've probably been comatose or asleep. But anyways, go ahead, fire chief.
Thank you, and through your worship. Yes, in our weekly report last week, we had, in 6 days, we had 17 calls. So we've been very busy, with, wildland fires, structure fires, car accidents, medical calls, and the such. I think we responded to about 9 different fires, in the township over those 6 days. Some of them were, unattended burn complaints. Some of them were, improperly discarded smoking material, which caused the loss of a shed, a car, and a cottage on an adjoining property. So please make sure that we're paying attention to what we're doing when we're burning, and make sure you have a burn permit, because they're free for us to respond. If you don't have a burn permit, you'd be subject to fines and the price of the equipment showing up as well.
So just so council is aware, the fire department is making more of an effort to enforce those fees, mainly because it's a safety issue and we want people to comply. The burn permit system is free. There's no cost to register it, so that we know that people are hopefully following our rules and regulations when it comes to burning here. I think the gentleman that we saw, so they were making a bit of a quip at the Lyndhurst Remembrance Day, saying that, last year they missed it because they got a call at 10:30 and that they were really looking forward to being there. And literally the pager went off as they had the wreath in their hand to almost walk up to lay the wreath. So there was a call that they had to go to, but I think they said one day they had 6 calls. Like it was just one right after the other. Or maybe it was, didn't get to go home for at least 6 hours because they had multiple calls, one right after the other. Either way, these are volunteers giving their time. I know they do get paid as well, a base wage, but it's a huge commitment over and above a 40-hour work week, and we're very grateful.
And we're very fortunate. We have almost 100 volunteers within the 4 stations. And with deer hunting last week, we were pretty light on that. So we, on the one call in Sealy's Bay, we called in for tanker support from Kingston and from Rideau Lakes, as well as manpower from Rideau Lakes. And as soon as Rideau Lakes left us, they went to about 10 acres on fire in cliffs and everything else up around Westport area for South Frontenac. So everybody in the area has been very busy with wildland. So
is there any burn ban or any changes to that at this point?
no, not at this time. It is very dry, but most of our wildland fires have been something that has been started a week or 2 before, and they've gone underground. And in most cases, it's come up after the wind changes direction or whatever. But some of the ones we've had this last week were just blatantly not watching what they were doing.
So other than that, thank you again to the fire service and their dedication. Just this week coming, not a week from this Thursday, I will be putting my name in the hat for running for the warden of the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. So send all your good thoughts my way. There's some work to be done, and I look forward to the opportunity should I be elected by my peers. So we'll let you know how that turns out. Also keep in mind that we'll have budget discussions here come December. I know that our staff have been working very diligently, and you can see the stress on the treasurer's face already. It's a difficult season. I have not heard back any confirmation as to the specifics from the province regarding the OPP billing, which is posing a a huge pressure on our budget process. It has been mentioned that they will be coming forward with some sort of reckoning. I don't know what that means. I don't know how much that is. I don't know if it's over multiple years. And as I told our member, I'm reserving judgment until I see it, because the reality is, you know, we still have to pay the bill regardless. So I don't know how long it's going to take before we find out where that's going. Are there any announcements from anyone else? Go ahead, maybe, and then Deputy Mayor Foley, please.
Just as a clarification on one of your items, the budget is December 12th for the council to meet?
Yep.
Okay, just want to
December
clarify
12th,
that.
and that is in
10 a.m. I think.
here in Chambers,
Yeah, 10, okay.
10 a.m. all day.
One of the best announcements I've had to actually put out here in a long time is that my parents-in-law, Paul and Phyllis Young, today celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, that's a milestone. I don't care how you cut it. It's very nice to see that. We had a celebration on Saturday at our house with some of his family and of course all the siblings. So very, very monumentous thing. But again, moving forward to South Alley Festivals this Saturday, which I'm attending. The parade on the 30th, which I hope all are in attendance, and I know the township will have something in there again. Lansdowne parade is on the 17th at 5:30.
This
And-
Sunday.
Yeah, breakfast at Santa at the fair on December 7th, which I will be attending, helping them with that. December 8th in Gann, the Rotary in the park. And December 15th, Lions in the Park. And at the Remembrance Day that the mayor did mention, there were 300 to 400 people in Gananoque who attended. It was a very well turned out. I was surprised that there was that many people there with the impending rain. So again, it was very well attended. And Deputy Mayor of Gananoque placed the wreath for town of Gananoque, as I did for the Township of TLTI. That's it for me. Thank you.
And the Lyndhurst Parade is November 23rd on the Saturday at 1 p.m. So we'll make sure that we have all of those up on the website to share with residents. Deputy Mayor, go ahead. I will do that. Thank you. I haven't thought that far ahead. So American Thanksgiving is coming up. So our American neighbors, I know that there's been a lot going on down south. I'll not make comments in regards to the election one way or the other. Just know that it is a very difficult time on both sides of whatever choice you want to make. Just hope for as best civil discourse and respect and tolerance of individuals' beliefs, as we are losing some of that in society. So I hope it does not morph into more discord. And so go ahead.
Not much of an announcement, but I'm very proud to say that I have a nephew who is now published with doing a book tour at Indigo. James Lackey, JW. JW Lackey, yep. So he's doing book tours. I believe he's Ottawa for the next few weeks, and then I think down in Kingston.
And the name of the book?
Nemesis Spawn. It's a little deep.
Nemesis Farm.
Might be listed as mature. Therefore, I probably can't read it, but
It's above your reading level. is
I'll
that what
do
you're
my
saying?
best.
Anyways, it's great to see local kids successful. So, any other announcements? Have no other announcements. Okay. So with that, we'll go to bylaws, moved by Deputy Mayor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe. The three readings and final passage be granted by bylaw number 24-049. And that three readings and final passage be granted by bylaw 24-050, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the corporation of the Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands at its November 12th, 2024 council meeting. Discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And it is carried. Last motion non-debatable, moved by Deputy Mayor Fody. Councillor Maybe is seconding that council adjourn at 7:35 p.m. And all those in favor?